называется чудо. Есть такое слово чудо. Это
I didn't think that's what you were gonna tell me. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Niger Chambers from Big Gold Belt Media. Gentlemen, it's a pleasure to talk to you about your new film, which is making its world premiere this year at Santa Barbara International Film Festival, Dandelions. Basil and Ben, congratulations. How just before we begin into the specifics of the film, premiering at one of the biggest film festivals in the entire world is a huge deal. Just on that merit alone, how are you two feeling?
Yeah, it's we're actually here right now, so there's a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement. It helps that we're right on the coast, so can't beat that.
Yeah.
A lot of excitement for us after 7 years of working on the film to finally get it in front of an audience.
Yeah, yeah. Ben, I gotta talk about your hair because that seems to be the hot topic of the film. Everybody wants to know the curl pattern, the routine, is it real? All those sorts of different things. But no, you do have nice hair. And I just want to tell the two of you two, I think it's a beautiful thing that you two did with this film. And Ben, I was gonna tell Basil if he wasn't here. I don't know how much more to say this, but I think everybody needs a Ben in their life. I think you said this was only going to work if Ben was going to accompany you. And I think maybe Ben, maybe initially when that was presented to you, maybe you were thinking like technically, or maybe like, thinking about like logistics and whatnot, but it was an emotional ride. And I think you were there the entire time, all the way to the very end, which we will specifically talk about that. But to start off with you, Ben, signing on for this and knowing just how deep this could get. I'm just wondering what was your initial reaction, and what was sort of that really determining factor where he's like, all right, you know what, hell, let's do this.
Well, considering that I had already booked my entire month of June for some secret trip abroad that I didn't know about, Basil told me, keep your month of June open. I'll pay for the tickets. We're going to do a project. I can't tell you what it's going to be about. When he told me, I don't think I really had much chance to refuse him, And while it's not in the film as it is now, there was a substantial conversation there after he told me where I'm questioning whether we should do this. Maybe we should pull the plug now. Maybe we should stop. Can you return the tickets? You know what? Why? Why should we do this? Yeah, when he told me, it was a lot. It was all sorts of emotions and perhaps doubts and quandaries about what does this mean about our relationship? How's this going to affect our parents? Is this, why are we not going to tell our parents? All of those things. It was a lot. I kind of blacked out for a moment, to be honest. So it's fun for me to rewatch it because I don't even remember. I'm just kind of in the present trying to process everything. But
Yeah.
I think when Basil looked at me and said, I really need you to be here with me on this, I did even say why. And I think Basil's response was, because I don't think I can go if you're not there to support me.
It's beautiful, beautiful. And I think it's a good segue because I want to reset again with this interview and start by asking just how are you two feeling emotionally with everything that you've done that's gotten you to this point right now? Not the film itself, not the production of the film, not the film festival, just emotionally, how are you two doing?
I think that do you want to go first?
In the context of the film, with a little bit of the context of the film, that whole process and finishing it, or just right now this morning after breakfast? What are you?
Yeah, just emotionally, man. It's a lot. I felt pulled in a lot of different directions from watching the films. It was an emotional ride, and I could not imagine just living it. And then I think you two and sort of the motivation of wanting to help others. I mean, that's a huge task, and living by and living through this and then opening the world for it is a lot. And I think as we want to, especially myself and my outlet, as we want to move forward in a society where we bring mental health and empathy to the forefront, I think this is a really important time right now just to see how everyone's doing, emotionally.
Yeah. I mean, I'll speak for myself in that today with the premiere, there's a lot of people flying in that worked on this project, and all of us were deeply affected by the journey of making this film. So for me, where I stand is just in a place of gratitude. That's how I feel emotionally. And I have hope that the people that watch this film become inspired by what they see, and that it creates a sense of transparency for people by getting to see such a really radically transparent into our lives. Maybe it inspires them to have that kind of relationship with their loved ones potentially.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would add on to that that I feel, I think both of us feel very fulfilled about how this whole thing is wrapped up. And I have a hunch that watching it today for the first time with the live audience is going to be another step in sort of feeling whole in this process, in this journey. But yes, our parents are also going to be there today, and it'll be the first time I've watched the film with them in the same room. So there's a little bit of nerves, but hey, we already got through the brunt of it, and they've already seen it, and it's not. I think it's going to be great, but I'm a little nervous for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's gonna be some moments where it's gonna be some sniffles in there. So, just be prepared for how your reaction's gonna be to that. And I'm not sure if you're getting a chance to introduce the film as well too. But I mean, I think at that moment is when it's just real. That's when the world is now going to be able to receive this beautiful project. And Basil, if I understand correctly, this has been a long road since 2010.
So it's been a long road in that it's been 7 years since we started, since we filmed it. And then 8 years before that is when I received these original messages.
Yeah.
And, for people that I don't know, it was, I got these two messages on Facebook from these two teens claiming to know me. And they said that their father was my biological father. And I thought it was a complete scam because I grew up knowing exactly who my family is, who my
Yeah.
brother is. So yeah, it was it was a shock to the system.
Yeah, I don't even know how I would have responded. Honestly, I think I replayed that moment at least 10 times. Like, what would I have done? Like, I don't know. But for what we can see on camera, man, you handled it very well. And again, shout out to Ben just being there, being that crutch for you in the journey of just unknown. With the film Dandelions, I'm curious, and I know it's stated numerous times within the film, which I could have never made that correlation. I don't know. Did the title come first? Did it come
Hmm.
afterwards? So in a sort of a two-part question, when you initially wanted to name this film, or if you wanted to initially name this film Dandelion, could you, for the viewers, explain what the title mean? And now, does the meaning behind the title, does it still stand, or has it grown into something more since?
Right. So that's a great question. I think that when this project came to be, it didn't have a name. It was just Project Untitled. It was Project. We don't know what's going to happen, and maybe this isn't going to be a movie at
That was
all.
Ben's vacation trip untitled.
Exactly. And I when we went back to Russia, that was my first time coming back to the place of my birth. I'd never been since I was 4.5.
Yeah.
And so, it's 29 years going back to this country that I loosely associate because I was born there, but I grew up in America. So it's kind of this, what am I going to discover? And it was amazing because coming back there, I started to get these flood of memories. So I would be in different situations and be like, oh, I kind of remember this, or this feels familiar. And so it was a really interesting experience. And, there was a moment when an actual dandelion seed falls on me and lands on my hand, and it sparks this whole memory about me and
Mm.
my grandmother. And so as I'm talking about that, it prompts me to go see my grandmother, and then through that whole journey, we're actually seeing these dandelions everywhere. And so I associate my childhood memory with dandelions. It's kind of like this magical thing that just falls on me. And then I see them along the journey. So then I started to question, like, what is this? Why is this present in my orbit right now? And so I get really sick in the film before meeting my biological father. I kind of have my system kind of shuts down because of the stress, and I start kind of thinking about the whole relationship. And so the film is called Dandelions because dandelions has this really unique fact about them that they're actually genetically identical. So when they spread and you blow the dandelion and the seeds fly everywhere, it's actually a clone. And it made me think like that this when we see dandelions everywhere, that they're actually kind of like this one big family. And I started to see that as my own experience as coming from Russia, going to the US, having family in different places. And instead of, so often we try to place borders around things, but I just saw it as this beautiful unification of people and my experience of being surrounded by family in different parts of the world, and that made me feel love at the end of the day. And so that's the reason the film is called Dandelions. I don't know if it'll keep on being called Dandelions. You never know, because some people are like, oh, we got to change the title so we can get it out. But the way I see it is that it's a personal thing for me. So yeah, that's the story behind it.
I can tell you from talking to other filmmakers, the higher it is in the alphabet is better for analytics and algorithms. So you're doing good with a D.
That's good to
I, I
hear.
it's so funny when you hear he's like, "Why'd you change the title of the film?" And I was like, "Well, because it started with a Z, and I know no one's going to be able to find it, so I made it a something so that it's at the top of your search." I was like, "That's actually kind of genius."
Well, it's a funny story here at the Santa Barbara International Film Festival. There was actually another film called Dandelions that was also having its world premiere here, and we had to work with the film festival and the other filmmaker, and we were talking about what to do. And the other filmmaker actually, Kate Cobb, she ended up changing the name of her film to Oki, so that premiered here this weekend as well. It's a feature film.
Yeah.
And but it was awesome because we had this conversation like what do we do? What do we do? So
Yeah.
we were able to come up to a solution, and Dandelion still exists for the documentary.
I don't want to put them on the spot, but I'm kind of curious about what was their backing with their title.
Yeah, well, we talked about it with her, and basically we were like, well, we both have a monologue in the film about dandelions, and I was like, yeah, I don't have like, this is my life. I don't have another way to talk about it. So she understood as a filmmaker.
Yeah.
She was like, it's
Yeah.
a lot easier to change the name of a narrative film than it is a documentary
True
film.
that. Yep. True that. Yep. And the reason I'm asked if there was ever going to be a change, not a change in the name, but a more expansive reasoning behind it, because I would think, and I could be wrong here, but after watching the film and you talk so much about family, and I love how for the most part everybody's buying into it, no matter what the situations was, no matter how you got to this point. Your brothers and sisters, and even Ben, we in America, it's very easy for us to say half brother this or step brother that, It was like brothers, sisters, brothers. This is what it's going to be. I thought that was beautiful. And I started to think that the more and more this journey, we got in the journey, the viewers, and including myself, I started to feel a part of that. I felt like I was a part of this journey. I started to say, like, well, Ben's my damn brother too. Like, everybody needs a bit in their life. And even everybody else. And I definitely want to just jump my notes really quick and just give a moment of just love, flowers, and just the utmost sympathy to you two, for your grandmother, who, what a beautiful soul. And I think this the moment that she embraces the screen, and I wanted to give her a hug. It was like moments like that, people like this within this space, that I'm like, I know this is going to change the world. I know this is going to affect people, because I feel myself being like drawn more and more into it. And so the idea of you talking about the genetics, the DNA of Dandelions starts to runs this narrative in my head that like we're all the same.
Right.
Everybody, we're all in this
Yeah.
together, which even pushes the narrative even more of you wanting to help others connect with their families. And I think it's a beautiful thing. So again, I felt like in the beginning of the film was more focused with you, but now it's like this really is a scope into the world and to humanity. And I think it's such a beautiful thing. And I good luck, man, because if I'm in there, I'm boo-hooing, and I hope nobody closes the door on me.
No,
But it's
yeah,
so beautiful.
I
Thank
appreciate you,
you.
man. I thank you so much, and I think you hit on this idea of like it's universal,
Yeah.
it's universal, this experience. So that's the best feeling is to watch this film and talk to people about it because people see themselves in the experience, and that starts really important conversations.
Agreed, agreed. This is the change in society and humanity that we need, and hopefully, our kids and so on will live a better life because of the work that such as you two have done. I definitely want to take another moment for you to talk more about you two support system. So you did say there's a lot of other folks involved with this. Is there any folks that may not have been shown on camera, but you definitely want to make sure that they get their love and their flowers for their work on this?
Yeah, definitely. This is a personal project made with friends, so that really means the world for us to highlight the people that brought this film to completion, and a lot of them are here at the festival with us. Mitch and Mara are partially in the film. You kind of see them, but they're husband and wife, and they're amazing filmmakers as well. And Mitch was the cinematographer, and Mara, his wife, was the sound mixer on the film. And then Flavia, who's on tour, you see her on camera. She's on tour right now in Europe, so she's not here at the festival with us, but she makes awesome music and she's out there doing her thing. And then we have our editors for the film, Eric Ellefson and Al Marinovich, and they're both here with us today for the premiere. So years and years of work with a small team, and yeah, we're happy to finally put it in front of people.
Dope. Flavia, how's our Russian doing?
It's probably still not great.
I love that moment at the end where we're saying this final goodbye and she
He's
says
like,
hello.
oh, that was hilarious. Definitely left on a funny note. A couple of more questions I have for you two. What was the what do you two feel was the biggest emotional challenge for this?
I think for me, I'm sure Ben has a different answer. For me, it was the hurdle of being the filmmaker and the subject brought a level of how do I exist during this process? And the filmmaking part ended up taking a back seat. It just became natural and was happening automatically. So anything that I was experiencing, whether it was, meeting my biological dad for the first time or coming back to America to sit down with our parents and tell them, that we lied to them and went on this whole trip and this is what happened and this is what
Excuse
we found out.
excuse me. One quick second.
Yeah.
I have a hard time really buying into the fact that you two lied. We'll probably talk about it in a second, but I really just have a hard time with that being like the narrative is
Yeah.
that y'all lied. I
That's
did
a
not agree.
that's the beauty of the film because I appreciate your perspective. And there are other people that watch it and they see that that's what happened. And what we really tried to do in the editing room and in making the film is presenting everybody's perspective in a kind of like a even way with neutrality because like family is complicated, so there's a lot of gray areas and it's really hard to say like this person is right, this person is wrong, because at the end of the day, people are just trying to do what's best for the best way they know how. And so, I have to accept that one person's perspective on this matter is as equal as somebody else's. And I love the fact that you're like, wait a second, I don't buy that because there are people that see it exactly like you do, and then there are other people that actually are like, No, I see it a little bit differently, and you know that's really the power of the film. So
Well, some
I
people
really
think that
appreciate
parts
that.
are staged,
Yeah.
which we can't underscore enough. There is not a single moment that was reshot or, hey, can you say that again? Never.
Yeah, that didn't. Yeah.
Okay, folks.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so emotionally, like to the hardest part was I think for me it was the two parts in particular that exist in the film. There's a whole lot more because what we actually did was we shot 350 hours worth of footage and we cut that down to an hour and a half.
Mm.
So there's a version of this that's 6 episodes long, and there's a lot of dramatic moments in it. But ultimately, we cut it down to this feature length, and definitely meeting my biological dad and the climax of the film, sitting down with our parents to have this conversation because it was a twist and it was a complete flip on the expectation that I had.
Yeah.
What about you?
For me, you said the most nervous moments for us, perhaps,
This
is that what
it's
you're
just the biggest emotional challenge throughout this journey.
Man, when people ask me how it was to be a part of this film, I say it's one of the most difficult things I've done emotionally and personally ever. Um, I definitely think every time we had to revisit misleading our family in America, or I would be lost in the moment, having fun, exploring Basil's past and his biological father and their family. But then we would have to go back, or want to go back to speaking with our parents and giving them an update and letting them know we're okay. And every time we did that, I would feel just deeply just conflicted, you know. The reason we didn't tell them originally was because, one, we didn't think that they would be okay with us going. And two, we thought that it would actually be more troublesome and more difficult emotionally if they knew we were there and knew what we were doing while we were there. So it was meant to be a compassionate choice, but I learned, perhaps I won't say the hard way, but I learned the long way that you should try to avoid lying to your parents as much as possible.
I mean, I don't know. Say what you want, but I agree with your statement, Ben. But I thought it was the right decision here. And I'm a big believer of within the realm of a lie, it withholds one's ability to tell the truth. So understanding that this was something that they would hope from you automatically erases any opportunity for you to be honest about your feelings, about how you wanted to go on this journey and so on. And I even saying and then kind of wrap a couple of questions up into one. I don't know if you two go to therapy, but damn, did y'all put on the display of like just the different tools that you kind of learned throughout it. Like one, writing a note to your mom instead of just going off the top. That would have been me. But the fact that you was able to really articulate your feelings behind it and to stand to that, you kept composed. Ben, I commend you for not just adding fuel to the fire when everyone's kind of throwing words at each other and kind of waited your moment, which is a beautiful thing. I tell you, in the black home, everyone's yelling. So I was like, we need to take notes here. But I just think when it was which really broke me is when you read the note and it was very articulate in terms of why, who, what, when, where, why. And mom's response, in all due respect to your mothers and all the mothers in the world, some of the strongest beings in the world. I felt this, I felt almost like a knife cut me when she was like, and it's like, what do you mean? And I explained this, and then her reasoning behind like, I wanted to separate you. I didn't have any guilt. There was no guilt. There was no guilt in that decision, but there was guilt and self-guilt because she felt embarrassed about the relationship she had created with your dad, and she didn't want you to have to be a part of that. And she mentioned this was something that you had held, kind of to your heart for 8 years, but they had known about this for a long, 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 long time. And she actually said she wasn't proud of the relationship because he was 6 years older. And your dad's backing her a dad should. So there's a lot of almost legitimate arguments here, but at the end of the day, I just thought because of the sensitivity of the conversation, you two really helped their composure, considering that the responses us as the viewers were expecting for was not at all what was delivered at the table. So my first question I want to ask you all, because this was something I was just kind of just jaw dropped. I'm kind of wondering what your take on this.
Hmm.
Do you believe, because your mom said this, that the psychologist suggested not to tell the kids because of what this could do? Do you agree with that notion, that professional notion, should I say?
It's really, you know, I think first of all, like I just want to validate that your perspective in the film like totally makes sense. Like I hear you, and me living it, that I felt the same way, that for me that moment was really difficult, and you see it you see it firsthand. I think that, you know, with parents, you just try to, I'm a new dad, and I actually, so weird because being a dad now, like understanding this film, but like it brings it
Yeah.
into a totally new light for me. And I think about, you know, what kind of decisions I would make for my son, and like what, you know, and it's hard. You just don't know. And you know, I'm grateful because I'm a lot older, so I feel like I can be more informed about my decisions. My mom, you know, was considerably younger, you know, and so I think she just made a decision that she had the information in front of her, and she did what she needed to protect me. So for me, you know, it's kind of like I didn't, you know, I was a baby. I was four years old. I didn't have the chance to weigh in on stuff like this. And you know, for me it's I have to accept where my mom came from, that
Yeah.
understanding that, you know, as parents we do what's best for our kids and we make decisions, and sometimes, you know, there is guilt associated, and there is moments of like, did I do the right thing? And but, you know, the way I see it is she just did the best that she knew how to. And that's you know, it's also why in the film, like I, you know, at the end of the day, I like break down and I'm just like, I need you to tell me, because like
Mm,
this is you, you know, this is you and me. And I'm you know, that moment is really special for me to watch, and hard. I mean, you
yeah.
know, that, but just being able to have that moment of clarity with her, and you know, I just really, it touched me, and gave me some answers that I needed.
I just want to add one thing, which is whether you agree with that decision not to tell your child, or you do agree, something you can't possibly have as much, context as we do about our parents just from the film is that, their story has a lot of joy in it and a lot of success in it, but also a lot of sacrifice
Yeah.
for their family,
Yeah.
left their entire network, all
Yeah.
of their relatives in Russia, and left to give themselves a better lives, and definitely us a better life.
Yeah.
And I think that contextualizes everything. If you have a pattern of interacting with your mother and she is very often keeping things from you, and you don't have a lot of trust there,
Yeah.
then you're going to be prone to thinking, oh well, you just didn't want to broach that or whatever. But when they said we really thought that was what we read, our father is also a medical doctor. He was in medicine at that time. I do believe, and I don't know, Basil, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm sure they really thought that was the right choice,
Yeah.
because they are people who are capable of doing the hard thing if it's necessary. So if it had said everywhere to them, whoever they were speaking with, you must tell him or her when they're 15, I think they probably would have tried to find a way to do that. So I don't know. For me, I think that changes the conversation a little bit. Maybe you disagree,
No, I think that's definitely
Sometimes we read what we want to hear as well,
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that like contextualizing it, I think is really important. But yeah, it's also like at the end of the day, you just go with your gut, you know, and it's like, you know, and that's the beauty of the film, because I would have taken a different path than my parents. And so whenever we make a choice that we're like, this is what I would do, you expect other people to act the same way. And when they don't, you're like, man, what's up? Like you're supposed to this is what I would do, you know? So that's the thing that I think is kind of one of the messages of the film is like you also have to accept that these different perspectives, as long as they come from a place of love, then we have to honor other people's ideas about what they feel is right or not, you know? And I think the film really does that.
Agreed, agreed. And again, so much rewatchability in that. It's a very very emotional journey to watch, but I think there is so many important messages about it, and I know the world is going to really take to this and really pour that love back into you all for the work you've done. My final maybe 1 to 2 questions here is, but between that transition between the heated moment at the table and then ultimately the ride back to the airport, you decided not to show how things kind of smoothed over. I
Mm.
know there was notions about food, and I think maybe your anxiety just hit you hard because you was like, I don't want to eat. And it was mention of let's play tennis. And I think everybody do handle confrontation in different ways, which initially I looked at your dad and I said, oh, he's being dismissive. But I was like, you know what? Maybe this is his way of saying, this is emotionally too much for me. I need to get back to a safe space, which is
Right.
the perspective about like, the different things. Everybody's going to have something different to take from this, which the ultimate thing and goal from this is conversation. It's to understand conversation.
Right.
But why did you choose not to sort of show how things moved over? And
Mhm.
then the other important footage I was curious about was you mentioned about their first reaction upon watching the film. You didn't show that either, and I really, really wanted to see it because from when we seen your mom last, she was last in this. She was kind of just like, "I'm over this. Like, I can't believe y'all did this to her. Like, I'm gonna miss my boys. They're leaving. I got to drop them off." And then ultimately, through the credits, we see her with a beautiful smile, and it's just we see the true pure heart of who she is as a mother, and then it goes back into the film about the sacrifices she made and how she just felt like she wanted to do the right thing, and ultimately she does this because of love, and she loves you too, and this is where we're at. So I was like, and I guess maybe from like a therapeutic lens, I was like, well, what did you do, what did you two do to get things back on track here?
Right. So, yeah, this is a great question because it's not, the film kind of directly jumps to what the end result is but so I'll fill in the gap.
I also want to say it jumps to the end because perhaps the solution for every person is going to be different. So, like you
True.
said, the point is going there and making sure the intent is right, but it's always going to look a little different for everybody. But I'll let
Mm,
you explain how
Yeah.
it happened
Yeah, I think that's super
here.
valid, Ben.
mm,
Yeah, for us, the way it happened was from, the things that you see in the film, took 7 years to edit it after that. So our family lived with this new reality during that time. And what we felt was, okay, this is now out in the open, and there was this okay, like transparency around it, but we hadn't really like dove deep into it. And my parents knew that I was editing the film during this time, and they were really supportive. They were like, "Are you going to apply to festivals?" Things like that. So, as years
And
and
to their credit,
years.
I'd say within a month or two, the rawness seemed to have settled down, and they had already vocalized like support of Basil's project and of, that just a testament to how loving they are. But
Yeah, so there was that like initial like, okay, things like, they got a little
we're gonna
less
be okay.
red. But still not a clarity, I would say. And what happened was about 5 years into editing the film, I got it into a place where I felt, okay, this is like it's hitting a really important emotional conversation. And so I was telling Ben about it. He'd seen some versions as well. And Ben goes, like you've been sitting in the editing room and you've been going to therapy by editing this film.
mm.
You've been watching these scenes over and over. You've been, I was
Processing.
the climax of the film, I'm sitting there editing and crying and being like, can we move that shot over there? And like, it's just I got to really integrate everything. And so Ben goes, like mom and dad haven't seen it, and so they don't know what's going on. And I was like, okay, you're right. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna call them. So I flew to their home, and I had asked them, can you guys watch the film? And they were, of course they said, yeah, we'd love to. So I put it on for them, and I like stepped outside, nervously pacing, calling everybody. Oh my God, my parents watching the film. My parents watching the film. And then hour and a half later, come back in the house and I see them just like sitting there with the credits rolling, and I look at their faces and they've been crying, and I was like, what do you guys think? And they were like, we loved it, and like that, and I saw this release. I saw this release of fear, release of the unknown, understanding my perspective, what I went on, what Ben went through, like why we had to do this thing together. And from that moment on, because that happened, I had this realization that this film, it's not just a story. In this moment, filmmaking became medicine for us to heal. And that was really powerful. And from that point forward, like there was no questions anymore. It was just like transparency. And so that's why it's such a big deal, because they're coming to this premiere, and it's really to put our life out like this, it's the ultimate level of transparency. And it just goes to show how much our parents support us in this and believe in this, that they're coming out, that they agreed to have the film exist as it does, where it doesn't always show all the like bright and fluffy sides of everybody. That's not what this is about. It's about showing that family is complicated and that it's worth it.
It's beautiful, man. I wish I was there. Maybe I don't, because I'll be blown away. I don't know, but
Yeah,
I
but
am. I am
Nigel,
very.
what do you think? You think after not telling them and then accosting them on camera with this news, we should have then also showed up again 5 years later? I think we owed them some privacy.
I was gonna say that we learned here. Yeah, you're right. No, truly, I really can't wait to hear the reactions from Santa Barbara International Film Festival tonight. I would definitely have my ears glued for the reception of this, and hopefully the judges are much aligned like your parents, and give tons of thumbs up on this, because this is a fantastic film. And while I do want you to just receive all of your flowers and kind of live in the moment, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask if you two are going to get back to work. You say you wanted to help the world, and I'm thinking, I mean, and I had a friend, not in this capacity, but I've had a friend I've helped in a very small scale, reaching her biological mother, and just to think, and as you mentioned, like there's so many others that
Yeah.
needs this journey and need this motivation, need this assistance of sort. Have you thought about what you wanted to do next, whether you wanted to continue to kind of aid society in this manner of reconnecting family, or are you back to filmmaking and you have another project close to your heart that you want to work on, that you're working on?
Yeah, thanks for that question. Definitely, priority right now is traveling with the film, making sure that it can inspire as many people out there that need to see it. And yeah, then there's another documentary that we're working on. It's about the immigration situation on the Mexican-US border, but instead of looking at people that are coming into the US, we're looking at people that are leaving the US to go down into Mexico, and specifically the elderly demographic in America that feels that they don't have the support that they do anymore on the US side. So they go and live in these little communities south of the border. And so I'm following some subjects down there and kind of exploring why sometimes in America we let our elderly down, and what that's all about.
I'm looking forward to that, man. I'm certainly am. And again, as I was going to end the interview off with, just again a moment of just wanted to mention rest in peace to your grandma. I think such a beautiful soul, and I'm for sure with that subject matter should be the utmost proud of you two. and the work you've done on this film, but also just the work and contributions that you're putting into society. So when that drop, I'll be here ready to talk about that again soon. And I would imagine I'll be seeing this at a lot of different film festivals. I'm gonna guess maybe Tribeca, maybe TIFF down the line, South by Southwest. But either way, I'm sure we'll run into each other very soon on this one. But Ben and Basil, thank you so much for your time today. Thank you so much for this project. I'm wishing you two nothing but success and love.
Thanks, man.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having us on, and just a pleasure to talk about things that matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. Folks, jump in the comments, show your love and support. I'll have in the description below where you can check out this film, keep you updated as it hits more film festival, doing a film festival circuit. And until the next time, thank you.